Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel on which I will tell you how to make the most OP build in Memento Mori. But first, we do have to check in with our fan mail, as we probably should.
Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Now I get gullible and wonder whether it's real or not. That's what my job
Well,
is.
last time we had an email from Joe Biden. This time,
that one I didn't believe, to be fair.
this time we have an email from my dad who just tells me to come home. And the next email at offbeatpods@yahoo.com is an email from someone called JB. And JB writes, "Hey guys, what the fuck? Where is the Mothership game? And also, where is the Wild Sea game? That's what you promised."
I forgot about that.
Okay, no, that's fair. So, JB, listen, we learned our lesson. We learned our lesson not to make plans for too far ahead, because as they say in Christianity, you make something plans, something God laughs.
Make plans, God laughs. Yeah.
Yeah. We shifted gears. We actually recorded a Mothership game, but it sucked ass.
The system didn't suck ass.
Yeah. The thing is, we on offbeatpods.com, we are committed to quality product. I overcooked it a little, and it would have been a great sci-fi novel. So, lesson learned, we will no longer be announcing our plans, but amazing things are to come. But that is all for the future. Now let's talk of the past. Memento Mori. No one's ever heard of this game. Last I checked, not a single actual play on the whole of internet. Last I checked, we're the only ones who are playing this game, and I don't know why. It had a very successful Kickstarter thing, and somehow it's and I've been, as you know, I've been looking to play something specifically Christian as opposed to like medieval. I was like, I want to be in medieval Italy or France or whatever. And then the system is interesting, very unique.
Like, I like how just the dice pools work. Like, you're always rolling 5 to 7 dice. Never particularly more, never particularly less. And that just...
Until much later in the game.
Until much later.
Yeah.
But, like, it leads to this great progression. That's like you gain corruption and you get to roll more dice, and your chances of rolling a 6 on those dice, which triple the value, you start to feel more powerful despite like your actual actions being exactly the same. So you don't have to like learn your character as you level up. You just learn a dice system. It's a fairly neat little dice system of d6s.
Yeah.
Took a little getting used to, I think. Not so much a dice system, like once you knew what dice and stuff you could roll, that worked, but like getting used to like how to use things like the gifts and how to evolve them and what dice you can use for it. That took a little bit of jumping through the rule book at different sections and trying to work out what was going on. So I feel like a nice like cheat sheet of
if I had
evolving your character would be helpful.
If I had any criticism, it would strictly be layout. Layout of the book is a little all over the place.
And maybe the translation in some bits and pieces, I feel, is a bit confusing.
I never even thought that would have impacted, but yeah, that makes sense. Because I remember reading it thinking, I need to read this a few times for this to make sense.
Just for like, a few words pretty much like being the same place twice but meaning different things at different points.
Yeah.
Just because that
might
might have been different versions of the same word in Italian translated to the exact same thing in English twice.
I was committed to finding something in this genre, in this specific kind of gameplay. So I did the work, but it was a bunch of jumping around the book to like, how does this actually work? But what really sticks out as a unique selling point of this, and I'm wondering like, transition and also like somewhat to the character talk and whether the rules supported that kind of storytelling. What I would say is that the idea of your backstory becoming a mechanical thing you do is really good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like you never have to talk about your backstory as characters just sitting and telling each other what happened to them. because you constantly bring up your backstory by just making any kind of roll.
I think as well because it's almost like the abilities are blank slots, and then you're asked to basically come up with a memory and with like a key phrase and what that means as an ability, like what it actually gives you in the world. So every time you use an ability, I found myself having a snapshot of like a memory of my past character just to myself. And that was very satisfying, especially when you start to lose those abilities because like they get corrupted, they turn into something else. But when you look down at your sheet, it still has all your old memories. So it's almost like you're remembering what you lost and and it helps you to keep that arc of that character going, I think. Yeah, that's really satisfying. And it makes them all feel important because you pick them all. It's not just like, I do a fireball. It's like, oh, I tap into this memory of when this thing happened to me, and that means that this thing happens in the world. And yeah, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, there's just something very epic about losing your name.
I really struggle though sometimes with games where you're encouraged to lose your memories because it's like your memories are what makes role-playing fun, but they've kind of created a mechanic where you corrupt the memory almost.
Yeah,
so it's like you keep the theme, but then you twist it.
It's not that you just lose them and there's nothing there. You replace them with something. So there is something new now standing there.
Yeah. And it's like, it's nice to kind of have that evolution of a character be so concrete. It's like, oh, I had this memory of having a child, and now this new memory is a corrupted version of that, which is a memory of taking care of thousands of people over time. Like, yeah.
So I love that at the center of the character sheet is now the dream, the sort of goal for your character. And just because all my terrible, terrible characters I've made in the past, the reason they've been bad is because they didn't have a goal. They were just characters who were in the world and didn't know what to do. And you go, I don't know what to do. What do they do? And this is like, you can't create a character without a goal for them to do.
Yeah, that's nice.
Well, the dream part is kind of sneaky because the player-facing part says you need to pick the dream, but your dream will never be achieved. It literally says that it's impossible to achieve your dream.
I liked that.
But then the suggested mechanic for the finale is like, hey, did the characters achieve their dream or not? So it's which I don't think
that was confusing.
I didn't find it confusing. I thought that was a little like,
please do break our game a little bit.
Well, like in a good way. I like that. It's like your dream can never be achieved, but then what are you doing? Why are you not achieving your dream? Which is kind of what the world. It's kind of like life, man.
Yeah.
I had very little plan. I don't plan like what the game will be about beyond the first session. But a few sessions in, though, I started seeing this thing of essentially you had a world that was, it wasn't great, but it wasn't evil per se. It was hard on you as characters, right? But if you had to make it very black and white, it was evil world with good people. Again, I'm very oversimplifying. You were kind of good, but especially Rufino was never really good.
Rufino was never good.
But if you really oversimplify, it was evil world, good people. And then I thought, oh, it would be interesting to flip that dynamic completely once you've like discovered this whole new world, once the old world is done. And then you are the one who are imposing the evil because you can't let go of your past onto this world that's trying to be good, completely flipping it. And here your dream really came in clutch as far as like a narrative hook, because the whole point would have been to leave you with nothing to pursue anymore but your dream. And this is what you kind of went doing. I guess Giscard's dream wasn't necessarily to start a union, but he did end up, which obviously was planned, he did end up finding his husband and everything. And
totally planned. All of that was planned.
I think I liked the idea of the impossible dream for that because it was almost like it gave you free reign to do something else. It's like it gave you a track to follow, but not in a way. Because I think if I'd imagined in advance, okay, here's a dream that I have to fulfill, I would have tried to work out, okay, how do I get that thing? Whereas because it was an impossible dream, it was more about how do I replace that with something which is possible. And
yeah,
that gave me that leeway of, oh, she's going to find other kids and she's going to think that kid is her kid. It was more expansive, I think.
The session itself, where like we got to Avignon and just seeing what, no, it's gone. Your like 7-session goal has been destroyed. What are you going to do now? Just like, I don't fucking know. What's there left? Oh, this is my dream. That's it. That's the only thing that's on the sheet. The only thing I can do. It's just like, yeah, okay, I guess. I like it.
When we came to session 6 and you are doing all these big things, we accidentally employed a mechanic, well, pretty much employed a mechanic from the book that we kind of all collectively forgot. The book suggests a very...
I didn't even know in the beginning. I was just lying by the seat of my pants.
We basically started fast forwarding the narrative speed and letting you do like much bigger things in one roll that, you know, a single action would really, like, you know, you make one roll and you create a kingdom. And this is very similar to what the game actually suggests as an optional mechanic for the ending, where it gives you this big pool of dice and you do big things quickly as a kind of montage. That was kind of interesting that it just naturally happened.
Something I liked about this system was that, like, we had 2 characters there that had like no combat abilities at all, and it wasn't like you don't interact with the world through hitting stuff with a hammer or with a sword or with a mace or whatever. You kind of, a lot of other systems, obviously you do have like non-combat abilities, but like everyone has sort of like a combat thing. But in this game, it never really felt like you two weren't able to do anything.
Yeah.
Even without like any like explicit. So you were able to be more like normal people. And then it was only, the only reason Gisgar had like combat abilities is because of the kind of backstory that had gone with for him. But
yeah, I did feel when I was creating her, she was more normal than normal. Like there was nothing abnormal about her at all in a way. Like she was just a person, which felt very satisfying.
Yeah.
Even like in the first session where literally we got attacked by a spider and I was like, oh fuck, she has nothing to physically deal with this. She's going to have to react as if a normal person would, which is literally to freak out and throw candlesticks at it. Like it was like, what do you do in that situation as a normal person?
Dice Pools games, even though, you know, I love Powered by the Apocalypse games and I love Blades in the Dark kind of games where you have your stats and those stats give you X amount of dice. There is this one thing that always happens when I make a rogue whose points are in agility and I want to do everything using agility now. Because, you know, that's where my stats are, which it leads to the situations where like, well, I'm trying to convince them, but can I move my fingers really quick as I do so it counts as an agility roll? You know what I mean? Like you're trying to invent ways where, because obviously you always want to use as many dice as you can. Here, I do like that they completely give you, instead of agility, strength, wisdom, whatever, it is these more vibes of, I mean, yeah, you could kind of suggest that Cerebrum is intellect, but it doesn't have to be. You can fight in a way that uses Cerebrum if you're more of a strategist. And here you can, if you want to, always roll the ability that has more dice.
Yeah.
And all the game asks for you is just to role play that in a way that makes sense, which I quite like because here the mechanics and the kind of RP side of it come together as opposed to people struggling to make everything about their selected stats sometimes.
Yeah. And to like even the flip side of that as like having a table of people in like, I'm going through this currently in a D&D game where we're all watching a rogue with their plus 18 in acrobatics just flip over everything. We go, cool, good job. I can't do that. We're just going to wait for you to come back. And then 4 hours later, they come back having done in dungeon. And here it's like, no, you can all just sort of do the same things.
Yeah.
And it's all worth doing.
Did you guys find yourself, though, because I found myself doing this, because I'd made my bond basically be, I kind of want people to do things that I want them to do. I found myself being like, I can't keep using that, so what else will I use? Oh, I'll use one of my virtues this time, even though it's not as good. I was trying to diversify what I was using so that I stopped using the same thing over and over again. So I wonder if that's just a flaw from with like picking, or because like some things are just inherently more powerful. Like if you're going to use a bond, you might as well use a bond because you get 2 extra dice.
It did come up a bit with me, like picking some like corruptions, gift of the bonds that just didn't come up. I had like my ability to create spider webs for 4 sessions before I used it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you picked the weirdest
It
thing.
was cool, I thought.
Yeah. To be fair, I did pick my virtue when I didn't understand how virtues worked, and I didn't realize you don't get a new virtue for everything you corrupt. You just get like one virtue and then you add to it.
Yeah, it's good to remember with these to try and so I think I came into a bit of a situation in the last session there where like my gift of the name, where it was kind of like making demons kind of do what I want, and the voice, which is making people do it. They were both very similar, and so actually I could have used either one. So it's something to bear in mind if you're playing this game, to try and make your virtue, your bond, and your gift of the name, those gifts, quite distinct in what they would do and the application, so that there's a situation where it's more natural for you to use one. So I think that kind of helps. But yeah, I made a mistake in having the name and the virtue very similar.
My mom, though, she does not give a fuck about all these dice. She cares about the story.
Yeah.
I like playing people who are a bit fanatical, so that was quite fun. Like, she wasn't in the beginning, but like the more corrupted she got, the more fanatical she got. And I think when you get more fanatical, you get to be a bit more kind of like, you get to go all in, which was fun. Yeah.
I like that you just started saying nonsense.
What, me? There.
What was in your intro? Destiny is not forged in purity, my son. It is sculpted from chaos and despair. What does that mean?
I didn't write it.
I mean, well, yeah, I wrote it, but I was emulating, you know, the kind of shit that you started spewing.
Yeah, it was driven by feeling, not by intellect. It was driven by feeling. It was driven by, I know this is right, and I just have to say words to back up my own shit.
It reminds me of the discussion we had at the bucket when you were coming down the bucket and Giscard was going to go up.
Yeah.
We were trying to convince Giscard to stay with all of this, like, evangelizing.
That's basically, it was basically just evangelizing.
Yeah.
It was like, if I twist you in enough knots, you'll understand.
Mm.
Yeah. It's nice as well. I think it became successful when we became more kind of archetypal, because it meant that we were kind of dealing with each other as like concepts rather than just as like individuals. So on that like larger scale,
you were growing kind of larger than life with
Yeah.
all your insane powers and stuff. Yeah.
but it's like we were also becoming more like Rufina was becoming this thing about like authority and fascism, and I was becoming this thing about like fanaticism. You were becoming this thing about like, I don't know.
What
like,
was I becoming?
because like with the union stuff, you were almost going into this place of like trying to forge this like unit of people who were fighting for a cause. And
yeah, in a way I kind of went back to the martial roots, but more of a unionized one. I think in my head, where I was heading before, I was thinking that Giscard would head closer towards what the Templars were actually accused of like idolatry and worshipping Baphomet. So I was like, I thought it'd be interesting for Giscard to head in towards that and actually become the things that Giscard was trying to absolve.
Well, we would have trouble because I don't know how YouTube censorship and gay porn graphically.
It's funny because in the accusations, it's more like brother such and such kissed other brother's navel rather than like.
that is hot though.
Yeah. But it's very like innocent in a way.
What was going on with the alchemist and with the woman in the cathedral, the artist? Were they like...
Well, like almost with everything, I throw an idea out there and I develop it once you get involved. And you didn't seem to be biting as much. Not that I necessarily needed you. I kind of liked thinking about them as these, not, what would be the word? Not background characters, but these kind of mythological almost. That's why I didn't give them names, and they're just like artist and alchemist. And these, like, are they the same person? Are they different people? Are they individuals? Just kind of these forces at play of transforming, you know, material reality by virtue of some kinds of skill and ingenuity. But they didn't get that much. I mean, you've chatted to them, but it didn't really turn into anything necessarily in the moment, which again, you can't have everything turn into something, otherwise you'd be playing for 10 years.
Yeah.
I have thoughts basically, and they would have been more, I guess, important, but I kind of liked them just showing up towards the end as a just sort of, they have stuff to do, but that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you.
Yeah.
Like they're just doing their own shit, you're doing your own shit.
Do you have a highlight moment for any of your characters?
I guess that GMs, very broadly fall into control freaks. And then I just want to watch my children play, right?
Right.
Kind of philosophies. And I'm very much of the second. So it always excites me when players just kind of go nuts with whatever, when they break out of their box. And I guess Embers, I'm just going to kill this whole army thing. I'm not like, it's not even, wasn't like necessarily inventive. It wasn't necessarily like deep or anything, but it was a very big move on the narrative that kind of brought along, like if you didn't say that, I don't know what the ending would have been, but it wouldn't have been what it ended up being, right? There wouldn't be this field of confrontation because there wouldn't be.
I'd laid a few ground lines of, let's research chemical weapons or something to kill demons. And then just, why not just intersect myself in Giscard's story at its climax? Because that would be the worst thing possible to happen to Giscard at this moment.
And I mean, I would, not to go on a big tangent here, but I don't necessarily imply that this is a more superior way of playing in any way. I am fully convinced that this is simply ADHD. When I am, in playing or running or, consuming a game and it takes someone 5 minutes to open a door, which is like partly why I am very rarely enjoying trad games, because how slow everything moves is torture to my brain that always wants to go faster and like, what is the quickest way we can change stuff here? Or
interesting.
when we're playing a narrative, like I love Blades in the Dark like everyone else, but after 2 sessions of Blade in the Dark, my brain is already, okay, how we overtake this whole city and expands onto the planet. Like I always want to go, which is not necessarily a good. I'm giving no like virtue to this desire. This is sick. I'm a sick individual. I am a sick puppy, and I should be put down. Right. I'm just more often than not, my takes involve me explaining how my preference is the morally superior one and ethically better than everyone else.
Obviously, that's how everyone is, right?
But here, I make no such claim.
Okay.
I can see how you could find joy in this, like, it does
I
make...
love the minutiae.
Yeah, like, I have nothing against the minutiae like that, but it does make my heart go aflutter when somebody just, like, moves shit forward. And, like, the more you break, like, you could not, like, I hate the phrase like break your GM with this super pro tool till, like whatever like I hate that implication that you can I know what they mean. I'm just being facetious, but you could not break me because I would be just screaming for more. Like, yes, please break my game and see where we are. Admittedly, sometimes where we end up is not a good place. And like breaking everything isn't necessarily a virtue because, you need some kind of framework to, because otherwise it's just this child like, I do 9,099, well, I do 1 trillion damage, well, I do infinity damage, well, I do 5 infinite, you don't want to get into that. So it's finding a balance between being a child and, well, anyway, the long rant over. I like big things, so I liked that.
I liked how there was this theme of motherhood from the very beginning. I didn't think it was actually going to be that big. So it was like seeded very small in the beginning. But I liked how she kind of ultimately became the mother of the Antichrist. Like when she was trying to get through to heaven, then she failed and she became pregnant with like Lucifer's baby. I was like, fucking full circle here. And she basically became, again, I'm terrible with names, Worm Baby's mom. Kiara. I hated Kiara. And she basically became Kiara. That was quite satisfying.
It was good. It definitely like fit the narrative and like took it almost to the extreme that it could, I think.
Yeah, I like that. That was fun.
I liked exposing my idea of what I think the 14th century looked like to the concept of fascism. Because they just wouldn't have a defense against it. Like just they've not experienced that level of just manipulation of the truth, and that was me kind of playing with myself.
Yeah, it's like the perfect world for authoritarianism.
I just kind of just went crazy with that. It was so much fun. Just go, here's my cool uniform. That will totally work on the 14th century. They'll love it. They'll eat that shit up.
What about Giscard?
good luck with your little kingdom.
Ah, yes, of course.
So satisfying.
Yeah,
That was pretty good.
not killing.
Okay,
The kid.
if it's actually a moment, oh yeah, okay. I think that's gonna be a contender for Seamus, but I don't know. I sort of felt like my hand was forced into killing the kid.
Yeah, we were in a
yeah.
corner.
I think in terms of like the imagery in my mind, would be the fight in the caravan, and then linking that in with like the past with the Mamluks in Accra. And
Oh,
cementing that. I actually quite like that. That had like a more visceral image for Giscard in my mind in terms of Giscard's past. And yeah.
Erin has been doing a lot of research on the Knights Templar and the 14th century.
yeah.
She had
Yeah,
like
you've
images.
done your homework. You've done your homework.
Listening to podcasts as I sleep. Yeah, it's been going on. But but no. Speaking like an angry Frenchman. Amazing.
Yeah, the French accent is such a good RP accent.
When you say though, you feel like your hand was forced. Are you referring to my hand, or are you referring to like what are you?
I felt like Giscard was in a situation, and the party was in a situation where it was kill the kid or we all die.
We all die in fire.
in
Yeah.
fire. So yeah, it kind of felt like I had to kill the kid, which I'm not resentful of. It was quite, it was a poetic moment going for the like stab in the side, like Jesus.
I did when I was writing this railroad. I did write in my Google Doc. They're gonna get to a point where they're in a sea where I definitely wanted them to go, and didn't have to come up with this whole fucking ship on the spot. But when they destroy the ship, this is when they're gonna have to kill the child to use their corpse as a balloon to fly to the shore. I know it's gonna be really hard to roll rate them to this specific.
No, I know.
moment,
Like it was more
but
like we'd
we'll get
painted
here.
ourselves into a corner where the only option to get out of the corner was to kill the kid.
That's what I mean. I don't think you obviously hadn't.
I mean, you
planned
said
everything
you
there, but
said it was fate, and I kind of think of myself as fate. So that's why I assumed. To be fair, the whole corpse balloon,
That made me laugh the most.
it is one of the more like D&D shenanigans is classic. Everyone
Yeah.
has a story of like, oh, we did, but I think objectively speaking, that has to be high up there as far as shenanigans go, because that it's profoundly fucked up.
Yeah.
But
I
it
also like the
also
narrative justification. We got to kill the people in order to get that. That was fun. Like convincing them that they needed salvation and that the only way to get that was for us to kill them. That was fun.
Yeah, it is both profoundly fucked, but also logically consistent with the world that's been that's been set out.
Because I felt that was a nice like stepping stone in the corruption. Because I remember in the very beginning you were asking us about the farm and like, do we kill the people on the farm? Like, how evil are we going to be? And I felt, oh no, it's too soon for that. But then when we got to the point we were at the Lake of Fire, I was like, no, she's going to just fucking kill him. Like it was nice to see that stepping stone of like, no, we've lost our moral compasses here.
Yeah, you gradually like lose your humanity in this game.
Yeah.
Again, wasn't something that I planned at all, but I liked creating these little mirrors of, you meet Enzo once and then you meet him a second time and it's a very different situation.
Yeah.
So then, this is why it was quite easy to improv the whole Chiara situation, because I just thought, oh, like they met Enzo, now they obviously got to meet Chiara back. And it also felt like it made sense narratively as well. It was never like, I never conceived those characters as major players. They were just bandits on a fucking road. You know what I mean? But they ended up kind of, I think it was just how naturally like developed of the whole Enzo and Giscard's banter, if you may call it that, kind of seemed to actually stick and hurt more than I intended. And so, okay, like we got to bring that back. And then when I needed to pull something out of my ass, when you decided to go to the bishop's house, and I was like, don't go to the bishop's house because I don't know what a bishop house looks like. I mean,
I was wondering why we couldn't go and see the bishop. Because I remember we said it to you and your face fell and you're like, the bishop's dead.
I think we rolled for it, right? I was
We
like,
rolled.
please roll that he's dead. Please roll that he's dead, so I don't have to come up with a bishop. And you were all like, okay, great. There's no bishop. Wait, there has to be something though. And then I had this pocket of an idea of Enzo and got that. And it was.
I loved Enzo. I think that whole vomit fucking orgy was.
Well,
That's
vomit
another
orgy.
highlight is the vomit orgy. The
Vomit
vomit
or-
orgy was so funny.
When in Rome.
Well,
Sorry.
Yeah, again, like
That I didn't even intend for that. It was
the
just
vomit
like
orgy was awful.
I'd evolved the virtue, and I needed to get who was it, Rufino or Sybil?
I was eating.
I had to get Sybil out of the stomach, and it just happened to be that it also affects anyone else who hears.
I thought that whole sequence was fantastic. It just everything landed like a fucking domino tower. It was brilliant.
Was less of an impressive idea, but it was impressive in how viscerally disgusting, forcing me to describe the slick floors that you slip on. And in that whole thing, you're killing this child, and that's whole.
I loved that bit.
I have to ask about how the narrative was structured. So there was a lot of like mirrors before the apocalypse happened, and I guess a bit afterwards. But were we treading water until the child eventually died? Almost.
Not necessarily. The child was kind of, most of the meaning of the child came from Sybil. I intentionally made them a vague enough figure that I was waiting for you to latch a meaning onto. If you didn't do anything with the child, I would have just done something with it myself and had to obviously I had potential ideas of what the child could be and what kind of role could play. But once I realized that, okay, the child is basically just Sybil's pet. And obviously that, like Sybil leaning into that, created the whole character basically for Sybil and this whole motherhood thing.
Yeah.
Which wasn't necessarily a given, because a lot of the times players want to adopt any little thing that you give them, and a lot of the times they're like, what is this kid? I don't give it. Like if you gave me as a player, if you gave me a child, that child is left at the first bus stop I see. I am not a babysitter. I don't care about some child that you've just given me. So if you didn't latch onto them in that way, this was nothing like super deep, but I intentionally didn't gender them to see like what you would make of them.
Yeah.
And
Gender changed a lot. The gender changed a lot. I actually quite like that, because originally I'd kind of just gendered her as a girl, but then the more she started to think of it like the kid as her son, she started gendering them as a boy. So there's almost this like level of delusion there as well, of like, I'm just starting to call you a boy because you are my son now.
Though it does continue tradition of having a they them character and echo in the heart game and the child
bad at they,
here,
them.
and continuously failing to actually they them
Yeah.
in game is what we've been doing.
We're really